Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to Faith Family Focus season number 2, and this is episode 44. I am Faith Suggs, your co-host, Duke Women's Basketball graduate, and CEO and founder of Brand by Faith, the social media and branding company dedicated to telling the digital stories of our clients. This wonderful man next to me is Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served as VP and on the executive board with the RPFPC, NFL former players of Chicago. Good morning, Dad. Happy Monday. How are
Happy
you?
Monday, Faith Suggs. How are you?
Good. Where is my statue behind you? Like, what's going on?
Oh yeah, it's somewhere else.
Oh, it better not be broken.
It's not broken. I know we're missing it.
Better not be
What? It's in the closet. You mean jump off and put it back where it's supposed to be?
No. It's just what people don't understand is I have to watch that around you guys. I'm about to take it soon. I don't know. You guys treat it bad.
I don't treat it bad. It's your brother turns it around the other way. But he doesn't like you watching him all the time.
There's a hat, like on my face, whatever. Just take care of my statue. But good morning, happy Monday. It is only January 10th. It feels like we are already 3 weeks into January.
Well,
no, seriously, it's crazy. But I don't know. I feel like January, at the start of a new year, always kind of runs a little bit slow. But we do have a bunch of stuff going on now that we are on the second week of January, starting it off. We have a wonderful football game tonight.
National championship game.
Yep.
Alabama and Georgia.
Who do you have?
Well, I don't really care.
Okay, well, if you had $1 million and they said, Schaefer, you have to put it on one game or else they're going to take all the money away and give it to the worst person in the world, which team would you choose?
Alabama.
Alabama, why?
Because they just seem to have, it's like some teams just always play better against another team. We always strong against the Patriots. Alabama always beats Georgia. So they beat them in the SEC championship game. So I'm going to give the edge to Alabama. And hope, but I just want it to be a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope it to be a good game. And I plan on watching it.
Yeah, I will probably watch it here too. I'm very interested to see. And another question I have on all of this, and we can discuss this later in the show because it kind of ties in what we're going to talk about today, is how long Nick Saban is going to keep doing this because he's been doing it forever. It's very amazing that he's been this successful for so long, repeatedly every single year. And it's not a surprise. He's created a culture around his organization, which is another reason why you said Alabama's going to win tonight, because we have seen them win so many times. We just have a feeling that they'll be able to be successful in these type of situations. But it's very interesting watching him do it year after year after year. It's impressive. It is impressive. And how much longer can he do it,
So Nick Saban is the Krzyzewski of football. He, basically you get the players that are the most elite, dominant 5-star players. They go there and they play 1 year, they play 2 years, and they go to the league. And his ability to maintain that status of elite players that want to go there,
right,
just been consistent. Just like Krzyzewski, you're going to get those players, and not only do you get 1 or 2 players, but do you notice on his roster, which really kind of separates him from most of the other football programs? SEC is an elite program. Is their depth. Normally they have 1, 2, 3 deep that can go play in the National Football League.
Yeah.
And that's why you see Robert Campbell. That's one of Devin's parents from Yale. Nice. Welcome. But that's what you get, Faith. You have a very elite program. And Devin got a chance to meet Mike Stock and Rich Wingo that played football with me at
Ball State.
And they played under Bear Bryant.
Okay.
Bear Bryant was very similar, So it's a reputation. It's just consistent. And he's going to probably coach until I mean, I don't see him retiring anytime soon.
Who
Uh,
Saban?
Nick
Yeah.
Saban, you know,
What?
he also tried his luck in the National Football League too. You know, he was at Michigan State, but he went to the Dolphins. And he
Yeah.
came back, but he is a elite coach, and I think and we'll talk about the portal a little bit too.
Right.
He benefits from that also. So I mean, I know that was a long answer to a very short question.
Well, the question was, how long do you think he's going to do it? And you said basically until he's in the grave, which isn't surprising at all because he does give me that vibe. Um, I will say this about Nick Saban is if he is the definition of it's not broke, don't fix it. He's the example of that, and he's showing a lot of universities that you can stick with one coach for a very long time. Coach K, Calipari, Gino Auriemma, Pat Summitt, the great John Wooden, the greats of sports.
Right.
They show that, he has set a great example about how he has kind of set a monopoly for him in Alabama.
There's a certain standard, Faith.
Yeah,
program.
Yeah,
coaches that you mentioned, there's a standard.
Right, a winning standard. That's what it is. And because of that, he recruits high-level athletes because they want to win a national championship as well. They just want a piece of it. And that's why he gets continuously great athletes. Now, it's very interesting now, on the basketball side, that is not holding as much weight as it once did. Duke is getting great recruits, but now we're going to see the turnover as all these great coaches. Bill Self got a lifelong deal at Kansas, but, I mean, how long does he really want to be in Kansas? And then you have Calipari. How long does Calipari want to do before he takes another crack at, who knows, maybe retirement, but maybe he goes back and wants to do ownership in the NBA. You never know. But it's very interesting as we're seeing this turnover of older coaches and more successful coaches and our winningest coaches of all time step down and step away and pick up these more advisor roles. How will these dominating schools kind of adjust? But then again, we see the future of sports now. We see the Dawn Staleys of women's basketball. We see, the Deion Sanders, right? We see the switch happening with these younger player coaches stepping in. It's going to be very interesting if they just create their own dominating forces, or we see a completely different NCAA sports platform for sure.
Right. What I hear you saying is that there's definitely a transformation in the coaches. I mean, there's a few icons that are still there that have been able to be successful because they've been adaptable, they've been transcendable. But you see this new age of younger coaches coming in that are taking over, not only in college, but you see it in the National Football League too.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, but you know what? That's just that has a direct correlation to branding, marketing, what people are presenting themselves as, for sure, in this new world. They got to advocate for themselves, and it's very interesting to see how quick the Dolphins coach fired. We learned about it this morning. He's gone. He's out.
Whoa! I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he's out. They announced it this morning.
Okay.
And it's just, you see people like Mike Tomlin, who's been successful in Pittsburgh for so long. It's funny. You see the difference, and it's just, you never know. That's why you got to keep advocating yourself and stepping up to par and setting those standards each year for yourself. But very interesting stuff. I'm glad to hear you have Alabama tonight. I have no idea. I want Georgia to win, but then again, there's something in us that still wants Alabama to be successful. Don't know what it is, but
we have family member with Alabama, your Uncle Sam, so we got to keep it in the family. He would love to hear you say Alabama.
Roll Tide, yeah.
Roll Tide, right? So,
well, funny story before we transition it. My former coach at Duke, Joanne P. McCauley, she did in her off season, she liked to go and shadow a lot of great coaches. She shadowed 76ers organization prior to Doc Rivers. There, if you guys don't know, the GM and with 76ers is a Duke grad, as well as Adam Silver, Lisa Borders, a whole bunch of powerful people within professional basketball. And so she shadowed the 76ers, and she also went to Alabama and she shadowed Nick Saban for a week. And if people know the distinct difference between how to run a football program and how to run a basketball program, everybody knows the difference, right? Football has to be entirely more disciplined because how many kids are on a football team, right? 50 plus, okay? And you look at a basketball team, it's about 15 kids, right?
Right.
Football, you got the kids split up by position. In basketball, you only split up by position maybe throughout practice, right? And so maybe like for 20 minutes. She came back after that and had us doing, we stand in your spots before practice and warm up and clap at the same time and all this stuff. We were looking at her like, lady, you know that they do that because there's 70 kids on a field and they all got to hear each other. We can hear you. We're right next to you. We promise. It was just a mess. But she said that she has such an eye-opening experience in the level of discipline and standard that he sets for his program, and it trickles down through every single coach that is serving under him. It's just is very up to par what you think it would be.
Right.
So,
right. No, I remember you sharing that story with me. That's funny.
Yeah, it was funny. It's a fun time. Because
there's more to that story because there were drills that she ran.
We were doing up downs. We were doing up downs. Why are we doing up down? What am I gonna do with this? What am I gonna do with an up down in the game?
Well, you're diving for the basketball, right?
No.
I mean, you led your team in charges, so you probably learned there was probably charge drills there too, right? That she actually.
No.
Oh God.
No. It doesn't make sense. But good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We're happy to have you guys here. We are welcoming new people. If you are new, feel free to share the show and let someone know. We're going to talk about the transfer portal today. We've covered so many conversations and topics surrounding this, but we've never really dove into the transfer portal, which is making me laugh because we touch on it almost every show, but we never dedicate a show to it. So if you're new to us as well, like I said, Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and Cincinnati Bengals, Faith Suggs, me as your co-host, daughter, and former Duke women's basketball graduate for 4 years, graduated in 2019. But so we have a wide variety of knowledge surrounding this topic of the transfer portal.
I want you to back up, talk a little bit. I know you want to get into something, but talk a little bit about the huddle, and you're going to share because you had a really good guest on this week with your own individual show on Friday.
You're saying last week?
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the huddle.
Yeah, the huddle is a solo show, spinoff from Faith Family Focus, hosted by me. We haven't had a live show in a couple weeks. Everyone is lost in COVID, everyone's lost in work, and everybody's lost in everything else. So we're pretty busy, but it is definitely something we run every Friday. If you missed it, we've had at least 13 shows. Guests Nolan Smith, Sports Illustrated, Ashton Nicole Moss. We've had Paralympic gold medalist Abby Duncan. We've had a wide variety of amazing guests to give us a worldwide of topics. We talked about, disability, depression. We talked about bereavement. We talked about a woman in a working world. We talked about an amazing show with Kirby Porter, former women's basketball player at Harvard. She had an amazing show talking about branding and just the new student athlete NIL world and how to navigate it. And she actually released a new company today. I can't remember what it's called, but always upper moving with Kirby Porter, amazing show. So yeah, we've been really lucky to have a great spinoff every Friday. For those of you who are new, try to catch it. We try to rerun them as well so that, because I know they're really far down on their Facebook, but we would love people to be able to check them out because they're just all were amazing guests so far, for sure.
So this is your own individual spin off called The Huddle. It's on every Friday. It's a great show. Folks, she doesn't like to talk about herself, but it's a phenomenal show. Wonderful guests, and I just look forward to. I mean, I thought the Moonlight Kicks with the.
Oh yeah.
That was great with the first women's shoe.
First Moonlight Kicks is the first basketball shoe dedicated to women's feet. Women's feet are different in 5 places than men's feet. If you guys did not know, the only shoes that we don't tailor directly to the woman's foot is women's basketball shoes for some reason. And so this year, I mean, actually, Under Armour is trying to roll something out as well. But Moonlight Kicks released their first, 4 styles of their shoe. And it's out in Dick's Sporting Goods now, which you could check that show out. I feel like that was episode 10 with Natalie White, Moonlight Kicks founder and CEO. backed by a lot of investors, a lot of amazing investors. You guys would be very interested, and I can't share that, but it's a great, great, great company for you guys to look into. Once again, that's Moolah Kicks, Moolah. Moolah Kicks. It's at Dick's Sporting Goods. You might have it in the Dick's Sporting Goods near you, but we had a great show with Natalie as well.
Okay, good.
But yeah, so catch that every Friday. We'll try to get new ones out to you when we can. But so far, we've been really blessed to have 13 great guests so far on the show with the Huddle. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Faith Family Focus. We are really excited to dive into today's show, which I know why you guys stopped by. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. And I guess we can kind of kick it off, because before we even dive deep into it, is what was transferring in 1960, 70, 80, 90? What was the mentality surrounding that? And Dad, you can kind of give us a little bit of an inside look into that, because I think it very much influences how we view it today.
Well, I can't give you an insight on it. It's very new to me, and that's why I really wanted us to do the show. But I do know prior to athletes being able to go from one school to the other is they had to sit out. And this is completely changing the dynamics of sports, college sports. Now kids can actually put their name in a portal. And now that became the recruit mechanism for college coaches. I all week since you decided you were going to do this show, I'm watching Twitter and I'm watching all these kids formally announcing that they are entering the portal. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty interesting to watch now that it's such a big deal. Basketball, football, and how it impacts not only teams that are losing players, but teams that are going to acquire players. How is it going to impact the programs, the incoming freshmen, right? So, and I know that Shane probably has his own perspective on it from a basketball perspective, but I think it's a really good thing for college sports. The ability. I'm just concerned a little bit about,
Okay. Wait. Don't give us that perspective just yet, because I have things that I want you to dive into. You just covered it. So to give a little rundown on those who don't know, the transfer portal was created within the last 2 seasons, kind of, to allow a space for student athletes to place their names in and try to find the next school that they want to transfer to. Transferring is the process of moving from one school to another and finishing out your collegiate career there, academic and athletic. When you enter the transfer portal, college coaches can then see your name, the school you were at, where you're from, and any film or footage they have on you playing in that sport. Soccer, basketball, football, volleyball, whatever it is, you can enter the transfer portal. This is fairly new. Since the transfer portal started in its first year, in 1 year, 15,000 student athletes have entered the transfer portal. In 20
that total, all different sports?
All different sports.
Okay.
15,000, yeah. In 2018, let's compare the numbers and let's kind of push our conversation. In 2018, only 39% of student athletes everywhere have transferred. Okay, so 2019 was a 39%, and now we're looking at a 15,000 student athletes during the year. Okay, the first year transferred. Now, when the rule happened, and this is what really pushed the transfer portal over and open, the rule was in 2018, in order for you to transfer, you had to sit out 1 year. Okay, which wasn't bad because a lot of student athletes got their master's degree, right? Or they were able to, get a 3-year school swap or whatever it was. The only thing was if you transfer within conference, it's a 2-year sit out. Transfer anywhere else is 1 year sit out. And if you have already graduated from a 4-year institution, you can transfer and play right away for your 5th year. That was the only time you could ever play for one immediately. So when the NCAA created that rule that allows student athletes to no longer have to sit out, the transfer portal kind of blew up. And so what we're here to talk about today is a little bit the effect the transfer portal has on the sports world of collegiate sports, amateur sports, which isn't the case anymore, why it happened, and also who does it affect the most and who does it benefit the most. And that is the biggest question, because we're watching the NCAA completely turn and change in front of our eyes. So I guess my first question, I want to kind of start prior to the portal, prior to this rule change, prior to it all happening, is prior to the portal included a year of sitting out. Do you think that the NCAA, and this is a discussion question we could banter off a little bit, because I'm very interested in this as I was writing this, is Do you think that the reasoning behind allowing student athletes to play immediately after transfer that first year, or any year, I should say, but playing immediately, what was the mentality behind it for the NCAA? On your end of it, why do you think they wouldn't allow it to happen?
Well, I think it's interesting how it happens almost simultaneously with NIL, National the Name, Image, and Likeness thing. I think that really impacted that decision. I think prior to that, was it fair for coaches to leave and go to other universities? And a lot of times these kids go to schools because of the coach, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But now they're stuck too. So I think the NIL had a lot to do with it. I don't know the impact from your perspective, but I think NIL really pushed the narrative around athletes being able to have the flexibility of going to allow themselves to be branded and marketed anywhere in the country.
Right. You know, it's interesting. It's very 100%, I think, influenced by the NIL name, image, likeness stuff.
Okay.
And the reason I think that is because, first of all, NIL has been something we talked about paying athletes for how long, right? It's been trending for at least a decade. Jay Billis is a big pusher behind it.
Yeah. NIL, name, image, likeness for folks that were just joining the show. So
yes, yeah. So, and when it started, I think that it opened the door to a lot of things that were going wrong with the NCAA. And one of the biggest things that was wrong with the NCAA, is you hit it right in the head, is the fact that these student athletes are picking a school because of a coach, which you can't say it doesn't happen, because it happens. You have to, who do you spend the most time with? That coach. Who decides on, honestly, the happiness of your career and your day-to-day activity? The coach, and that staff that you choose to play for. And so
that coach spent a couple years recruiting you too. So you
right.
have that relationship.
Right. And so when those coaches are allowed, and we see it all the time, they hop and hop and hop and hop. Why? Because they're adults, and because adults do that when they have jobs. Okay. We continuously, I think, treated these student athletes like they were children. And I think that what we were struggling as the NCAA, what we were struggling to see is that, yeah, they're not adults, right? But they're not children. And the fact that some of these children cannot make $10,000 per Instagram post because of the name, image, likeness rules is proving to us that they very much can handle what they're being thrown at. And so the name, image, likeness discussion and criticism very much opened the door for the transfer portal, because the fact that these student athletes weren't allowed to change schools if they needed to get home without losing a year, if their staff left and they had to go to a staff that didn't even like them, if they didn't like the degree or the major that they were scheduled to do, right? When I went to Duke, I had no idea they didn't have a business major. No idea, right? But obviously I made it work, because major really doesn't matter in life as long as it's not, creative studies or whatever, movies, cinema. It's, unless you want to be that. That's what they tell athletes, is you pick the major now that you think you can apply to life. And so what I'm learning is its biggest takeaway is transfer portal would never open. The transfer rule never would have been sliced if NIL wasn't brought up. And those two kind of come hand in hand. And they also kind of came hand in hand when the women's basketball Final Four controversy came about.
When that was what again?
When they showed the inequality and discrepancies between the weight rooms and the women's NCAA March Madness tournament, which wasn't called March Madness at the time because they weren't trademarked for that, and the men's side. And that was an uproar. So it was just a big, I think, snowball effect of things, right? NIL was trending for years. Pay the athletes, let them have access to what their name is him, blah, 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 right? And then we have transfer portal. Let these kids transfer when they want to, blah, 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 blah. And now we're hitting inequality. Now we're hitting everything that kind of rolls within the NCAA. And I think that it's not stopping. And so now we're at. We're in a space now where everything is open, right? It's very interesting on how we're doing right now in present day with it all. I remember I was still coaching when the rule was up in the air, and we had student athletes who had transferred that year because they were relying on that rule to disappear. And all I can remember is just waiting and waiting and waiting for them to pass that rule and change it and change it and change it. But so many student athletes transferred, hoping that rule would change so they could play immediately.
Right. But now there's a rule change. What is your biggest opinion of the portal so far?
50,000 student athletes transferred the first year. It's a lot of people transferring for the better. I don't know how many spots are on rosters. Football obviously probably leads the way in that, because football is a waiting game for sure. And I think it's very interesting. I can give my perspective on basketball in the sense that I think it's an amazing thing for basketball. I think it's an amazing thing for those 15 spot roster sports, 15 to 20, because you actually can be going from the 12th spot to the 6th spot in 1 year, right? You can go from the 12th spot to the 6th spot to a different coaching staff in a year, right? In a couple months, really. And immediately be put in a better position for you, right? And so I think that's an amazing thing for basketball. For football.
Well, let me say something, Faith. I heard something on when Kansas State was playing, that coaches need to adjust to playing and adapting their season each year versus trying to build a program over a 4-year period. Every year they got to adapt to a new program. They got to adapt to the players coming in. And if they don't, they're going to lose out. They're going to not figure it out because of the transfer portal. Would you agree?
And it's even deeper than that in the sense that when we talk about coaches who get fired easily, right?
Right.
You get like a 3-year contract and you got to prove yourself in order for you to get re-signed for an extension. The transfer portal can be really great for them in the sense that they can grab new talent, or it could be really great for them in the sense that they can get rid of old talent. And I think that people forget about this other half of it, right?
The old talent, get rid of the old talent.
Get rid of the people you don't want on your team. And that's the thing that happens, right? I saw it happen at Duke. Not to talk outward about it, but I've seen it happen on multiple occasions where student athletes are sat down and the staff says, look, we're going to find a better place for you in the portal. We're going to speak highly of you. We're going to call for you, but you cannot return next year. And that was always told to us because it was kind of a threat. It was like each year you renew a contract, right?
Every 1 year renewable.
Right. Each year they can decide to send you elsewhere. But they never did it because it was so dang hard to get the kid to another school because you had the 1 year sit out rule. So transferring was still like hard thing to do, right? So, but now with the transfer portal, now being a kid can leave in a month, coaches are handling it like this is the free agency, right? Hey, this isn't the place for you next year. We do truly wish you well. We're going to give people a call. However, please enter your name into the portal, right? And now the Clemson coach is like, oh, wow, so-and-so entered the name in the portal from Notre Dame. Let me grab him right away. Let me call him. So it's very much a great benefit for these coaches if they learn to adjust to it, right? And I think it's great for the younger coaches because they get it. For the older coaches, it's hard because we had this weird mentality surrounding transfers. Like when I was playing, transferring was like, oh, you transferred? Like, I don't know why we looked at it that way. We looked at transferring like it was a bad thing. We looked at it like, oh, they couldn't get right at the school they were supposed to be at, right? Or they couldn't succeed, or they couldn't just sit and wait their turn at the school we were going to see it. But my freshman year, Lexi Brown transferred in from Maryland after 2 Final Fours and a national championship and just wanted to get to Duke, right? And then we went on and went to a Sweet 16 and a tournament and ACC championship game. But it was like what she kind of proved, and I think that was the curve of it all, is she proved that, no, I'm not transferring because I'm not a winner. I'm transferring because I'm literally I want to go home. I want to be closer to Georgia. I want to be, you know what I mean? And so it's very interesting. The mentality completely changed now, right? Because what people don't understand is we really treated the transfers and the whole process so terribly back then. Like we made it seem like the kids aren't strong enough to just buckle down and do their best at the school they're supposed to be at. And now everybody's transferring. Everybody's making a run for it. Everybody's trying to chase their best opportunity, good and bad. And I say bad because not everybody can chase. There's not really always a great opportunity for people to chase, right? But for the student athletes who do have the brand, who do have the skills, who are a top future draft pick, they hold a lot of weight in their hands, right? They're like licking their chops right now in free agency, like, hey, where's Alabama? Where's LSU? Where's this? Where's that? Right? So many quarterbacks are entering the portal on the football side.
So as you're speaking, I'm looking at, I'm in my mind, I'm saying we're dealing with professional sports right now.
Right.
We're dealing with professional sports. There's no more amateur sports anymore. You look at the NCAA right now, you're actually looking at the professional sports, because now you add name, image, and likeness. Now you have free agency.
Right.
You have free agency in college sports right now.
Right.
My question back is getting back to the coaches that I feel that are going to be successful are the ones that are going to be adapt. Maybe different levels of coaches, different programs are going to impact the most. But there's a tier of programs that are going to have to be able to go. I have to adapt every year. My program has to be rebuilt every year versus having a 2-year program or 3-year program.
Right.
Every year it's going to be different. Every year might have different players. Wouldn't you agree that that's going to be the
That's what it is now.
Okay.
That's what it is now. We're entering the second season for a lot of coaches since this rule change. That's what has happened now. Carol Lawson brought in 7 kids.
Wow.
You have to remember
okay.
He lost 6.
Okay.
And so you got to remember cleaning house isn't a new thing, especially for new coaches, right? And so these two go in hand. So what I want you guys to picture is right now, between 2020 and 2022, we have lost a lot of coaches from that era of the Meistershevskis, the Caliparis, the successful winning coaches, and even just the ones who have had long tenures at their universities. I was watching Bob Huggins the other day, right? They've been there for years and years and years, right? Form relationships with administration, but they can't tap in now to the student athlete that is in their program anymore, right? These kids are different. They're mentally different, right? That doesn't mean the kids are weaker. That doesn't mean the kids are smarter. It doesn't mean the kids are more skilled. It just means, I think, that they're more aware of the long-term goal, right? We throw these student athletes now in today's society into personal training, private training, nutritionists, all these type of stuff leading up to college, right? So they're already pro-minded, right? Their eyes are already on the end goal, right? And then when they get to college, they have more nutritionists, they have sports psychologists, they have rehabists, they have masseuses, they have all these things laid in front of them, and then they also now can make money off their posts.
With name, image, likeness.
Right? And so they're pro athletes. So a lot of these coaches that were in the era of buckle down, don't transfer, for the heart of the team, whatever it is that we try to say that's what it was, but really it was just that.
Control.
Just that time. Right?
Right.
They're leaving, right? So we're watching that turnover happen. Now we're watching these student athletes rise and new coaches are coming in. And so the mentality around the NCAA is completely different, right? And it's very much influenced, I believe, by age moving, right? And these student athletes, it's this mindset of professional athlete experience, right? And whoever can offer the best professional athlete experience,
I like that term,
is most successful within the recruiting era, right? Mike Krzyzewski has been so successful at Duke, and people don't understand this. I give you inside look. Yes, he's Coach K. Yes, he is a great staff who at least 3 of them have either gone to the national championship, and every single one of them has either won one or been in the tournament. Okay? And all their student athletes are McDonald's All-Americans, right? But what you guys aren't seeing is that stuff isn't what's getting people to Duke anymore. Right? That's not what got Zion Williamson to do. What got them to Duke is that Duke invested into a social media hub. They hired at least 5 positions dedicated to branding, marketing, graphic design, video creation, all these things, right? So the kids walk in and they're like, ooh, fancy lights. Ooh, you put my name on that. Oh, you did that. Oh, you did that. Oh, we're coming, right? Who's going to brand me the best so that I can make more money and then get representation and then enter the draft and then become exactly who I am right now, but with millions and millions and millions of dollars per hour, right? It's the mindset of whoever adjusts the fastest wins, but it's what you're adjusting to is creating a space for those professional student athletes to be successful within limits. And you can see is that earlier this year, especially when NIL opened up, we saw a lot of coaches push back on it, right? It was like, oh, now the kids are distracted by their phones. First of all, who the heck is still worried about the phones? The phones are here to stay. The phones aren't going nowhere.
Right.
No, seriously.
I know.
But it's the people who struggle with that are going to struggle with all of this, right? Transfer portal. You know, these kids are entitled knowing they want to leave. They know their worth. They know their self-worth. There's no question about it. Now, do some have a weird view on how good they are? Maybe.
Yeah.
There's always a few in the bunch. But these kids that we're working with today are different. They understand that they have a lot of power in their hands on how they want to create the life they're going to create, right? And they understand that it could be their fault. But that's who you're working with now, right? You can't mold the minds anymore. The minds are already molded. It's what you do with them and how you get them to buy in is what creates your program. And that's why the transfer portal is so wonderful, because it gives the student athletes the choice to choose, right? The coach, choose the organization, choose the program that they want to dedicate time to. And I feel like that just caused them to buy into it more, because they actually made the choice after going through something, after knowing what they didn't like, after disagreeing with certain situations. They then made the choice to find the next school and find the school that works for them. I think that is a great thing. When we see all the positives of it, who benefits the most? Student athletes and college coaches.
So let's go back when your senior year, when we were being recruited. Say this was that time was this time. How would it have impacted our decision, your decision about going to a college?
Probably not. But I was talking the other day. I mean, I went to Duke because I went to Duke. I went to Duke because at the other day I walked out with a Duke degree.
Right.
Kids go to Brown, kid goes to Harvard, kid goes to Yale. They walk out with an Ivy League degree. Because of COVID, these kids can get 2 degrees now.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just trying to. It's interesting to see how people would handle this new.
How do you come out of high school picking a school with all this change?
That's what I question. Yeah,
we had this discussion of the day. I would go into school thinking that, well, I can move schools if I don't like it.
Right.
But isn't that what we do with everything in our life?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, everything in our life, we have decisions. We make a decision. We either change or we stay. Right? And what I think that is now thankfully lifted is that weight on student athletes' shoulders of like, well, you pick something, you should stick and finish it to the end, right? You should finish all your food on your plate. All these mindsets that we register for some reason in society, and this is something I've been really thinking hard about this stuff, is we tell kids to finish what they started, right? But it's how they finish nowadays that I think is the most important.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I was a student athlete coming out of high school, I'm like, okay, I'll pick the college. But you know what? What if we're talking about the student athlete who maybe didn't come out of college highly ranked, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is a great opportunity for them to pivot and go after the school after having maybe a great first 2 years, averaging 25 points per game, whatever, right? They can now end up at a school that they wanted to end up at, but they needed to go somewhere, right? It provides opportunities for kids to know that they can kind of mold the path they want to create, mm-hmm. they want to live, right? But one thing that come out of this, and is very interesting, the elimination of JUCOs and elimination of prep schools. I'm very interested to see.
Wow, that's a very good point.
Prep schools are for student athletes who want to maybe take a gap year, get better, grab more recruiting. more coaches interested, whatever. JUCO is for kids to do the exact same. Maybe they weren't highly recruited, right? Maybe they couldn't, get the grades, but that's not always the reason. It's normally that they weren't highly recruited, and then they blow up, right? But when you have the option to go into your first year and like immediately change schools or rise within the NCAA, why go to a gap year school? Unless you must, right?
But that's the only choice you have.
Unless that's the only choice, why would you, right? Because eventually you could just change your mind again, right?
Right.
So that's one thing I see missing.
Right. It's just interesting, and as you speak, there's so many things that are going through my mind. Is we in our Making of the Champion series, we talked about the influence that parents have on supporting the kids, scholar athletes. Now, how is it impacting the parents now? I mean, some parents are going to be, it's going to be a healthy experience because they're going to allow their child to navigate through it and guide them. But then there's some that will try to get in the lane and kind of navigate it for the kid. Please share your perspective on that.
Well, and I say this about everything, but if you have to, you'll never be happy when you do that, because you're now pushing the kid to do something once again to make a choice that doesn't line up with who they want to be. Now, the issue, what we have seen with the transfer portal is the same issue we were seeing when the transfer portal didn't exist, when kids were getting recruited out of high school and parents were all over them then. And this goes with NIL too, right? How much money can my kid make? How much da-da-da-da, right? How many deals can my kid get and send money home?
Yeah.
There are 15,000 student athletes in that transfer portal the first year it opened. I don't think nearly half of those kids probably deserve to be in there. And that doesn't mean it's not because they're good people or not because they're great athletes, but because maybe their situation was truly created to be a bad situation by those who were in their ears. And that happens all the time.
Oh, that's what I wanted to hear. Yeah.
Right? And so we've seen a lot of kids enter the transfer portal out of schools where I'm like, you should have buckled down, buddy. Should have finished that one out. Because a lot of them were jumping with no idea where they were going to end. And there were kids in the transfer portal up to August, entering in August, right? So they got through their first summer semester of summer training, and they were immediately in the transfer portal. You know how hard it is to pick up a new student athlete going into a new season, right? In order for you to grab an athlete, you need spots. There's only about 12 to 15 spots on a basketball team roster. Right? Football is a lot more open. Right?
You're doing this simultaneously as you looking at this, navigating through it. You're trying to figure out how am I. Well, like you said, it's going to be easier to get rid of players because of the portal because they don't have to sit out a year.
Right, but what if they don't want to get rid of these? Some of these, not every coach wants to get rid of kids.
But right? You talk about creating spots, though. How do you create spots?
You know what? Yeah, but you know what? They're not. That's my thing. Like, you see the name in there. It's really not that cutthroat. It's really not. Like, the college coaches aren't like, oh, so-and-so's in the portal. Let me. The weakest link. No, it's not how it works. There's some of these relationships with the student athletes. Jeez. But that's why there's an issue for these student athletes entering the portal, because it's like some of you aren't even 5-star recruits. Some of you aren't even a 1-star recruit. Understand where you lie within the NCAA, where you truly think you will end up, because a lot of that, the recruiting is going to have to come from your end.
Yeah.
You're going to have to find the next school. You're going to have to contact them. It's not as easy. You don't enter the portal and win the lottery. I'm going to Alabama or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of work. That's a good point. Maybe talk a little bit more about that. That's a really good conversation to have for parents who are thinking about doing that. What does that really mean?
Before, what I'm starting to see is a lot of illegal stuff, but I don't think it should be illegal, of student athletes having conversations prior to entering the portal. And if I, and Lord NCAA don't track down my future child in 29 years and ask them, if we had this conversation, but I would 100% start having conversations outside of before we enter the kid in the portal to see if there's schools that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because once you enter that portal, oh yeah, I mean you can get out the portal, you can stay, right? But normally
you can get out of the portal. You can. So once
once you enter the portal, you can go back. But the issue is, well, who wants to take you back?
Right.
Some do. Some coaches are like, yeah, come on. Or some are like,
why did you enter the portal? Let's fix why you entered the portal.
Right. Yeah, that's rare though. Once a kid enters the portal, it's like, yeah, go ahead. But it's when I think about it, it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's all I can say about it. It's you do your best. I would call and have those conversations, whether they're illegal or not. I would see who would want to take my kid. I would see where I would lie, what's good for us, what city, what market. Each school you play at has a market, right? Do I want to go to TCU, which is in Fort Worth? That's a big market, right?
Now you're looking at it from an NIL perspective.
Right. Now I'm looking at that. I'm also looking at, hey, our family's from Texas. Maybe we should go to Texas, right? You have family in Alabama. Maybe we should go to Alabama. You have family in New York. Maybe we should head up there, right? It's just little things. A lot of things pie into why people transfer, okay? Some staffs have better medical help, better medical resources. That's a big thing that happens with people, right? Kyra Lambert, who we had on the huddle, a couple shows, but she's also been on Faith Family Focus, had an amazing experience at Duke, but she tore her ACL multiple times. And I know, never mind. There were situations where the medical services weren't the best, right? So in terms of comparison to other schools, she went to Texas, no injuries, got stronger. Her branding blew up because they have a social media hub in Texas. And now she's still playing overseas, right? And so sometimes the pivot is what's best for you medically altogether. And so as I think about it, it's like, yeah, I'm having those conversations. I'm putting the bait out there a little bit before I toss my name into the portal, right? Where might I end up? Who's interested? So I can kind of get my mentality around it a little bit. Because to do that with everything else in life, before you buy a house, don't you do research, right? Right, before you get a dog, you go test out the dog. Before you get a car, don't you test drive the car? There's a lot of things that go into the decisions we make in life. And so when I think about this, I'm like, oh yeah, I would definitely, if I was a parent, if I was a student athlete on my own, I'm calling so-and-so. I'm calling my AAU coach. Hey, I'm interested in doing this before we do it. Can you feel around? Right? Who has spots? Who doesn't have spots? Who's looking for a guard? Who's not looking for a guard? Right? Like, let me get my mind around this before I jump, right? And so that to me is the best way to go about it. Now, it's not always easy for some coaches because if you're not connected, you won't know. And once the kid hits the portal, they're immediately picked up. But you have to at least prepare yourself for the process, right? Educate yourself on what position is my kid? Where does he lie within his peers? What schools would we love to go to? Why? Where? Distance from home? Majors offered? Resources offered? Right? Little things like that is what I think when you go into this process, you have to have a wide variety of research done. Yeah. It's still a great opportunity for these kids, though, for sure.
Yeah. And we can continue to talk more and more about this. I really appreciate you really giving our audience the lens on all the different levels of this transfer portal, because it's a game changer. Well, NIL is game changer, but this is the game changer.
Yeah. It's one last thing that I want to ask you and what you think, and then you can ask me. How do you think the transfer portal has affected coach's skill and how well a coach can coach?
I think huge. I think the coach is only as good as their ability to connect with players.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah, they got to be able to adapt. Bill Belichick is a great coach because he's been able to maintain his standard, his foundation of what he needs, but then he's always been able to bring in players. And some of those players can stay for a little while. Some of them can stay for a long time, but he's been able to connect with players. The coaches are able to coach any player.
Say the complete opposite of Bill Belichick.
What's that?
You know, they say the complete opposite of Bill Belichick.
Who said? I don't know. What
Former players, they say that he's not really the most connecting.
I think why did he win?
He sets an amazing standard that you just do it.
I would go play for him, and I knew him when I was playing. He's a hard coach. You knew what you get, but he's able for some reason to transcend with every year. He's able to transcend. He's able to win with this new age of player. He had Randy Moss. He had all these players. Antonio Brown. They all came. They didn't last very long, but he's been able to bring them in. Some coaches would not even think to bring those kind of players in.
Well, he had Cam Newton.
What's that?
He had Cam Newton as well. And that was So yeah, but that's another thing is, do I think that it relies on skill? I think that you're so right. One of the skills that you have to master to be a head coach in today's era is understanding it is what it is, right? In a healthy and boundary having way, right? Is understand
boundary. Yeah.
Allow the student athletes to be who they want to be, but find the pieces of them that apply to your program and can get them to buy into that because they want to. And that's just what it is. And if you can't, you got to step aside because you will not win.
You know who was able to do that? Phil Jackson was able to do that.
Yeah.
He was able to do that.
He also had Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. So that could have made you a great coach as well.
Right. But he needed the pieces around him. But my point is, you're saying you're 6 coaches that are able to adapt to this portal. They're going to have a little of that mindset.
Right.
To be able to adapt.
Agreed. Yeah, you can't be old. Old is out. Sorry. Evolve. Get in with it. If you're over 60, better start watching TV, talking to the kids, learning what it is they're going through. Because if you are not accepting NIL and you are not accepting transfers, you are behind and you will lose. So that's the new world, but whatever. It's very interesting to see. I'm very interested to see where it goes for sure in a year and what it looks like. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us this wonderful Monday morning. We're so thankful for those who stopped by to talk to the Transfer Portal with us today. I hope you guys learned a little bit. We'd love to hear any questions you have going forward. Just put them in the comment section. Maybe we could talk about it next week. Again, thank you to Amazon Fire, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, and Apple TV. And, of course, our key platform out of Phoenix, Arizona, E360 TV. Again, this is faith family focused. We're going to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on their path to strengthen family core. And, of course, our slogan, which is on our Suggs mugs.
Let go, let God. Let go, let faith. Let go, let love. Always.
Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful week. We'll see you guys on Monday.